Hey, everybody. I'm back with you today, and I've got with me Violet for a second interview. This is sort of part two from our first interview. We're going to give you an update on her story with regard to her school superintendent. So welcome back, Violet.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
I'm so proud of you. You're a little warrior princess. How tall are you? Like 5'2"?
Barely.
Nice. Well, so there have been some updates since our last call. And so for those of you who haven't watched that, what we're going to do today is we're going to give you the update from our last call. And then we're going to kind of go through it start to finish on how Violet stood up to her school board and stopped mask mandates. There's a lot going on in that case, and it's ever changing. So the last we left off, Violet had filed a claim against she had filed a claim against the surety bond for her school superintendent. The superintendent was covered for just over $4 million. And she basically had to file it. The day after the filing, we caught their lawyers on camera explaining that they were going to have to drop the mask mandates, that they were going to have to stop all state and federal funding. There were emails that were sent out to the parents asking for volunteers to come in and help out because they couldn't pay the teachers. And on top of that, they left the superintendent out to dry with this $4 million in liability. So a week went by, and what happened, Violet?
A week went by, and I had actually chosen to withdraw the claim because they initially complied. And it was an act of good faith. I didn't want to, on behalf of the children, cause the children any harm by not having education, et cetera, et cetera. So, and it was an act of forgiveness. However, after the claim was retracted, she had sent out a notice, pretty much discrediting, everything in the process. And they reversed everything. So masks were on. We understand that there was a lot of confusion around this, so we wanted to set the story straight on that. However, since that has happened, I have refiled the claim, so there is a current filed claim.
And you did that today?
Did that today.
Okay.
Yes.
So you kind of waited 2 weeks, but I want to tell people what you did in between there. So now Violet happens to have 4 bonds in hand now. So she has the superintendent, the assistant superintendent, the treasurer, and then a second or assistant treasurer.
Yes.
So tell them what you did with that leverage in the meantime, in between the last 2 weeks.
So since then, with that leverage, I have FOIA'd all their ESSER budget information, what they have done with the ESSER information, and was able to get that in hand.
Did you get their books?
I got the books. Yes. So I was able to see what they spent the ESSER funding on, which was, a lot of construction for sports fields, redoing bleachers, that kind of thing. They did spend some on instruction, which is what it's initially for. However, very, very little on health services, psychological services, so on and so forth. There was a lot of salaries that were paid for with this money.
Like as in raises to the board members?
I don't have that specific if it was raises to the board members. However, it's listed under salaries, which I have no issue with paying the teachers because we do need teachers. However, here in this district, we give 90% of our property taxes every year to the district to pay for salaries. So, I'm not sure why they needed extra money to this and spend on stadiums and bleachers and so on and so forth. So that's what working on in the last 2 weeks. So
and did they put any of that up for vote to the parents, what they were going to spend that money on? These are a considerable amount of funds, you guys. My district took 30 million in funds, right? This is a huge sum of money. In which case, in my ESSER agreement, it's City of Scottsdale School District in Arizona, is they agreed to use that money to enforce stricter mask policies, enforce contact tracing. They even brought in social workers to push their agenda. And they also offer up vaccine clinics, and they also agreed to have available test kits at every location, right? Because they've got to have higher numbers. So,
Right.
you know, I think the thing that I really want everyone to hear and know and understand about what we're doing here is that when these teachers and when in the curriculum, these people are practicing medicine without a license and they are promoting a thing that we don't even know the ingredients to, and it is not tested at all. And it is now coming out that in the military, the lawyer Thomas Renz and Lee Dundas just came out of a Senate hearing with Ron Johnson, wherein they have whistleblowers that have come out with regard to the armed forces, and the overall stats and data that they're seeing is that there's 100% increase in these neurological disorders. I'm sorry, 1,000% increase in neurological disorders, heart attack, myocarditis, stroke. These are things we've never seen before. It's off the charts, 1,000% increase in our military.
Yes.
So we cannot have them rolling out some agenda in our schools. Oops, lost you. She's back.
Sorry, I was getting a phone call. Miss Ann was calling me, actually.
Okay, no worries. So we cannot have this agenda coming through our schools. We have to make a stand now. I mean, for some, this may feel new and you know, different, but in order to file a claim against a surety bond, you do not have to be a lawyer. You know, you don't have to be an expert in the law. You literally just need to call them out for practicing, you know, medicine without a license, really. Okay, so after they tried to discredit, well, really quick, after you pulled the books, didn't they do some emergency meeting with a CPA or something like that?
Yes, absolutely. So the initial meeting was stated for, ironically, COVID measures, and inside the itinerary for the meeting, there was another section that consisted of their CPA coming. Their CPA was invited, and this happened a couple of days after I received the ESSER information. So, and they are misusing executive sessions. Basically, that means that no one except the board and who they choose to be there can be there. So they have been ultimately holding these quote unquote executive privilege meetings on the COVID measures without parents say in it, okay, because that offers no time for parents to even know what's going on, to speak up and voice their vote on it, as well as whatever's happening with their finances on why they need to invite their CPA. So none of the public knows about what happened in between these meetings. So,
yeah. Okay, so as I understand, there are adjoining districts that are being sued right now under color of law. And so there are districts that have they all gotten together, if there are a few that have gotten together to sue the State Department of Education for pushing this agenda on them and for coercion?
Yes, I'm not sure if the districts are specifically working together or if they're working separately, but they all have a lawsuit on the Illinois State Board of Education in regards to these mandates, because the Illinois State Board of Education has ultimately threatened them with losing their accreditation and funding if they choose to go against the mandates. So these districts are now, they have a lawsuit on the ISB, the Illinois State Board of Education.
And is there supposed to be like a ruling today? Was it?
That is a different ruling. There is actually a ruling coming out of our state capitol in regards to some lawsuits on other districts of the area from the parents themselves forming these lawsuits on these districts for the mandates. So that's kind of a separate ruling. However, we are expecting a ruling on coming down from the state capitol, either for these districts that are involved in the lawsuit from the parents, or it could be a ruling for the whole state.
Wow, that's huge. I mean, I really hope that this all goes back upstream to the original funders of these ESSER funds, right? So as I understand, throughout the nation, there's been $125 billion flooded into these schools, and almost every district throughout the country received these funds and accepted these funds and accepted some of these terms under the guise of safety, right? Without any information whatsoever as to the safety of these things. So it's terrifying. This is terrifying because they can't just send the money back. All they can really do is come together as districts to go, against the State Board of Education. And the State Board of Education, by the way, you guys, is they stand parallel with the governors in each of these states. So if you go to the State Board of Education, then you can go straight back up to the Biden administration, and the state boards might come together and sue the Biden administration because, as I understand, 115 billion came from the Biden administration and 10 billion came from the CDC. So they're really hoping this is what we want. What we want is for people to realize that they've been weaponized, that these schools have been turned into indoctrination and segregation camps. These agendas have come down the pike overnight. Like for us, there's a GLSEN program, glsen.org, and it's the full LGBTQ push, the anti-police push. At our schools, they are running gay pride parades where only the cool kids get to be in the parade. So everyone declares themselves as gay to be the cool kids. It just creates separation. I mean, why don't we just call it a school pride parade?
Right. Exactly. And they're segregating in other ways. So I spoke to another parent that stated, when these kids come off of quarantine for exposure of COVID, they're required to sit at their own table, at separate tables from the rest of the kids, because they've been exposed to this. And even though they tested negative, they're still required to segregate at the other table upon coming back. So it's just getting to ridiculous levels of segregation, and this needs to be stopped. I mean, we're going to end up being a country of segregation and racism, and also, people choosing to be gay just because all the cool kids are doing it, when in reality that's not their choice. It's a coercion. Kids will do anything for attention. They thrive on attention, and if you give them accolade for doing something, they'll do it again and again, and it confuses them. It confuses them with regard to gender. It confuses them with regard to their race. We're being called names, the whites are being called, white supremacists, even though they've done nothing wrong. So there's a bullying thing happening as well. And now let's talk about critical race theory. I mean, guys, why are we talking about slaves everywhere? I mean, if we're going to talk about slavery, why don't we talk about the trafficking over the border right now of the Hispanics? Or why aren't we talking about the Native Americans? Why aren't we talking about the Irish and the trains? I mean, we should be talking about all of slavery versus this one specific, because when you only focus on one specific and then you tell everyone, oh, this has been a problem, you guys have, in America, you're completely racist. It's like, again, you label them, you're programming them, you're treating them as a slave, you're separating them as a 6 distance apart. And that's every single day over and over. In my school, they're still requiring the teachers to wear masks, even though they've made them optional in my school. And even that, your mentor is wearing a mask. Your mentor is agreeing to be a slave. And so you're sitting there thinking it's okay. And even when they removed it, but highly recommended it, we still have about 25-30% of the kids wearing them simply because their teachers are. If the teachers took them off, it would be a no-brainer. Exactly. And as far as the racism thing, I think it's great to learn about history. We need to keep our roots in history about what has happened and shaped our country. But, a way to stop promoting racism is to stop talking about it. I have raised my children to all 3 of them, one's older and a couple are younger. I never told them they were different or anyone was different. I taught them that everybody could be your friend if you wanted them to be. You just, have to go up and talk to them. And if you have common interests, be their friend. I didn't tell them if the different races make a difference, because they don't. And so far, none of my children think of anyone as different.
No.
So why are we pushing this on our children in school, teaching them about race and people are different because they're a different race? That's not true. You don't teach them they're different. They don't know that they're different.
We're all light beings, and this is an agenda. This is an agenda. They're after force mandated things throughout the world. Guys, if you don't figure this out as a parent right now, if you don't take a hard stance, you have to understand they're after your children. One of the things that I did ask before I went and served on this last Tuesday, I had asked Lee Dundas, because we went together. I said, do you ever feel sorry for some of these people? They don't know that they've been coerced. They don't know that they've been weaponized and that they are following an agenda. And she says, Mickey, whether they know it or not, and they know they're breaking laws, because these are not laws they're enforcing, these are mandates. These are not laws. They know that it is state law, that it's up to the parent to decide what is right for the health of their child. They know that they're pushing against a big pushback of parents that want to be heard. She said, if you think about it, they're the ones holding the keys to the gas chamber in Nazi Germany, and you need to fight them. And she was very clear and deliberate about that.
Yeah, absolutely. 100%. I agree. If our children are not allowed to be free, then they're not going to know what freedom is when they're our age. That's why it's up to us, the parents, that can fight, that can stand up for our children, that do the due diligence and work the system and take our children's freedom back. This isn't necessarily about us. It's about future generations.
Absolutely. So coming back to your story, so we're waiting on the filing for this. So you were kind of holding out, not refiling against your superintendent, because you were thinking that maybe the State Board of Education would recall masks for the whole entire state.
Right. And we are getting a ruling on that in any second. Again, we don't know if it's going to be just for the ones named in the lawsuit or if it's going to be for the whole state. So,
okay. So what I think, because you always want to put our intention out in the universe, and we want to be extremely clear about what we want to see happen out of this. We want district school boards to come together against their their State Board of Education, and or better yet, to come together and go directly after and sue the Biden administration, because this agenda is coming from him. He's the one who funded all of it.
Yes.
Okay. And otherwise they're going to be holding the bag. Like, really, these people are breaking laws, and some of these policies, as we're learning, are per violation. So I'm just going to give people a quick example of that. Okay. If you are a teacher, or in this all trickles down. So if you're a district board member or superintendent, and you have a teacher in just one, oops, I lost you again, Violet, of your classrooms, and you give the advice to these children, you give medical advice without a license, you tell 24 kids in your classroom that they should get this and that it's really recommended, you are now liable for 24 violations. So all 24 of those parents could file a claim against you to your max liability deductible. And what happens if they do get injured? If I were sitting on a school board at a district level, I would not want to even take the risk that one child has a heart attack or has blood clots, or, and all of this information is being covered up, but it's available to you if you want to find it. All right. Go look at Ron Johnson and this Senate hearing. You have to hear this information, because otherwise you personally will be claiming and holding this liability. We're actually trying to save these people from themselves, really.
Yes, exactly. And it's giving them a chance to do the right thing, to allow them to see how many laws this breaks, how it's hurting the children psychologically and physically. Not just with the mask, but with the vaccinations that they're trying to coerce these children are doing. Because I feel like, if you're unvaccinated and you get exposed and you have to segregate at a different table when you come, that's coercion. The testing once a week, that's coercion, unless you're vaccinated. It's
careful with that word.
I'm sorry.
I don't know. Sorry to say, and I'll have to bleep those out.
Right. I'm sorry. You can.
No worries.
But all of this is about coercion. And we were told if we got it, we can stop wearing the masks, which we were able to for a very short time. And then they turned around on us again. So
yeah, it's also not about safety. It's about compliance. They want to know who's willing to act like a slave. And then we're going to just keep asking you more and more and more and push you further and further until you take an experimental.
That's
treatment.
correct. Yes. That's correct. And, and this is, you said earlier, this is an experiment. This is a test. We are the test subjects. So I want to make that clear right now, because this has not been FDA approved at all. This is an experimental test. It violates every single bit of the Nuremberg Code that's out there. So be careful. We're offering you a choice. We're offering you the information. I certainly wouldn't want to expose my children as an experiment, a science experiment for any of this, until we know the proper testing and procedures have been done, which the numbers, again, prove that there have been more injuries, I feel, than necessary for any experimental drug or anything. So just, we're offering this so you can make the right choice. Yeah. And for the districts and the teachers that are pushing this, this is an opportunity to make the right choice, and you stand up and say something.
Yeah, I also just want to talk about consent. So in the ESSER agreement that the Scottsdale School District signed, it literally says that as soon as the kids are age 5, they have informed consent. And I'm like, there is no informed consent, not even to adults all the way up to, 70s, 80s, 90s, because there's no instructions or details about the ingredients of this thing on any of the papers. So again, if anyone's watching this and they don't understand the magnitude of what's really going on here, was it the CDC came out and said that they will not even disclose the ingredients of this bioweapon until it was like 8 months from now, like August of 2022. So, and they tried to make it that we weren't going to expose it for 70 years or something.
75 years.
Ridiculous like that. Yeah. So if you don't see this as an attack by now, I mean, something's wrong, you're in big trouble. You know what I'm saying? Form an alliance among your constituents, form an alliance and tell them, guys, I think we're breaking the law. Because you are. And in your letter of intent, you cited like around 17 to 19 violations. Yes. International, national,
United Nations laws that go above and beyond the federal level. I mean, this is not just you broke a little law because you didn't stop at a stop sign. This is international Nuremberg Code. This is all of it that surpassed even the federal level.
Okay, so I'm going to summarize your whole story for those who didn't watch part 1. And then I'm going to come back and ask you a few more questions that we didn't have time to cover last time. Is that okay with you?
Sure. Yeah.
All right, everyone. So I'm just going to give you the quick, fast version. So Violet has a son who's 16 years old. He has autism. The teachers were forcing that. She tried her best to get an exemption, but they wouldn't allow it. The teachers were, he kept trying to rip it off, and they were forcing on him. They became pretty forceful and agitated. He eventually was doing his own physical harm or damage to himself, and he ended up in a mental institution. Violet went ahead and acquired her superintendent's bond, surety bond, and then she delivered a letter of intent to that superintendent that said, if you don't resolve these issues within 5 days, I will file a claim against your surety bond. And the requirements were that she stop the mask mandates, that she admit she was wrong, and that she resign within a 5-day period, which I thought was reasonable. The lady did nothing. Violet filed the claim. The very next day, we have their lawyers on record, recorded on YouTube. I can share the recording saying we need more beer and heroin because we're in basically big trouble. And they used the word heroin.
Yes, they did.
Because you guys are blocked from all state and federal funding. You've got to drop the masks. You're going to have to bring in volunteers to be teachers. And they left the superintendent out to dry. Then after a week later, Violet retracted the claim out of good faith, but they went right back to their old ways. So we cannot back down on these people. They went right back to their own ways and denied that there was ever even a claim, which is a total lie. Then, and we have the lawyers on camera.
So it's not a lie. So then, and I might add that to the end of this clip, by the way.
Sure. Yeah.
So then, so then now she's seeing this activity happening at the district level in her county, and they're going up toward the state board of education, trying to hold them to court of the fact that they were using coercion and pushing basically illegal laws mandates as if they were laws on them, and they were having to enforce it all the way down. So they don't want to carry the liability. And if they win that court case, they likely won't. And then hopefully the liability will fall at the state school board of education level, and the state school board will eventually go after that's what we hope to see, right? That's the right thing to do. Okay. So, but in that story, once you obtained the surety bond for this treasurer, it was a little hard to serve her, wasn't it? She was on the run. This is over
superintendent.
Oh, sorry.
Yes.
Yeah, the superintendent. Sorry about that.
Yes, no, that's okay. Yes. So there were quite a bit of meetings that we had agreed to that, she had left early, very covertly, as a word described to me by somebody else that was there. I went to the sheriff, actually, and told him what was going on. She told the sheriff she would accept service. I offered a meeting inside the police station where it was recorded. Actually, the sheriff had offered me that. So she refused to do that. And there's no laws on where you can serve them. I would always recommend doing it at a board meeting where it's recorded. However, there's no laws on where you can serve them. So went to her home, very peacefully, knocked on the door. After I had seen her walk up her driveway from a walk, refused to answer the door for me, actually called the police on me. And by that point, I was already back home because I wasn't going to be, disrespectful in any way. I knocked on the door twice. I rang the doorbell twice and then knocked on the door and then left. The police, I told them what was going on. I was actually given a pat on the back and they stated, "Good for you for standing up for your rights. Here's what I would recommend. Call the county sheriff, actually, and in hopes of getting like a processor to come serve her." They were all about it until they found out who it was, and then they refused to do it. So shows the amount of corruption here in my county. Eventually, we were able to serve her at the district office when school was back in session.
Wow. Yes. So we are seeing that they are on to us. They know we're coming and they know they're guilty. So, and they know the power of a surety bond. Yes. So what's happening now is we do have some basically some boards that are filing a restraining order on some of the parents because they know they're about to get served. And some of the boards are trying to do virtual meetings. They're pushing really hard to do virtual meetings so that they don't have to show up anywhere and get served as a group of people. So I ended up having to hire a process server. And there's a process server usually near your area, and it costs like $100 or $150. And they'll usually go and they'll serve. They'll try 3 different attempts, and they have to serve them at home. Usually that's easier because if they go in the office, the secretary can block it, or you can get your sheriff to serve them for you. And it helps to have your sheriff's bond, just saying.
Yes, it does. Yes, it sure does.
All right, you guys. Well, I really appreciate you coming today. Do you have anything else you want to add to the story? I feel like this has been very, very informative. And I know a lot of parents. I mean, this is spread out through all of the United States. We have people from all over the place who are obtaining their surety bonds right now, and that they are planning on filing a letter of intent. And this is a very broad movement right now. This isn't just you. This isn't just me. There's many parents stepping up, and we've got videos pouring in every day of people standing up to their boards. So this is exciting.
Yes. And the only thing I want to say is keep up the good fight, everyone. This is about our children. This isn't about us. Our parental rights have seemingly been torn away from us. And it's up to us to stand up. And I'm proud of everyone who is, and I'm very grateful for everyone who is, and keep up the good fight.
Thank you so much, Violet. I really appreciate you joining me today. We'll see you again soon. Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
All right. Bye, honey.
Thank you.